Hello again, and welcome to the St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. Tom Calhoun here to shine a light on the stories of those instrumental to Blues history. Episode 2 of this series features Blues Hall of Famer Big Walt, Keith Tkachuk. Stand by for some never-before-heard facts and stories. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Blues Hockey Legends Podcast. Tom Calhoun here again, and we are excited to have for episode 2 the great Keith Tkachuk. Big Walt is with us in Florida. You're spending a lot of time down there these days, huh, Keith?
Well, you know what? When I'm not out scouting for the Blues, we're down here quite a bit, but I'm still in St. Louis too. Just trying to get some. We just moved into a place down here, so it's really nice. The weather's been great, and it's a great setup.
I'm envying you in that T-shirt there right now because it's been snowing all day here in St. Louis, and I think it's about 25 degrees outside right now.
Well, I'm glad I came down here for a few days to get rid of to get away from that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You know, there's a story behind the Keith Tkachuk announcement. And I don't know if you remember this, but when you got traded from the Coyotes to the Blues, I came into the locker room right before that first game that you played, and I said, Mr. Tkachuk, I'm Tom Calhoun. I'm the PA announcer here at the Blues. And if you don't mind, I've got a treatment I'd like to use on your name. Your name is just begging for a special kind of a treatment on it. And I did the thing for you, Keith Tkachuk, and you said, "Yeah, go for it. Do whatever you want. That's fine." So with your permission, I've kind of made that one of my favorite announcements over the years.
Well, I love it. I think it's great. I loved hearing it. I like to hear it a lot too.
And when your kids come back into town, I keep getting messages from people. Are you going to do the Tkachuk thing when they score?
I I don't think Doug would like that too much.
Yeah, I don't think Army would go for that a whole lot. So I've soft pedaled that quite a bit. Hey, let's talk about the Keith Tkachuk career a little bit. You know, first of all, 1,290 games. I'm gonna read from my notes here for a second. 1,290 games, regular season and playoffs. Of course, with Winnipeg, the Coyotes, when Winnipeg moved to Phoenix, the Blues, a short time with the Atlanta Thrashers, and then back to the Blues. 555 goals, regular season and playoffs. You're in the USA Hockey Hall of Fame. You led the NHL in goals in 96, 97 with 52, the first American-born player to do that. 5 All-Star games. Why is Keith Tkachuk not in the Hockey Hall of Fame at this point?
That's not for me to answer. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, there's nothing I can do. I enjoyed my time playing, and you know, um, I get asked that a lot, but they got a tough job to do. But if it happens, I mean, it'll be a huge honor for sure. Just saw my good friend Jeremy Roenick got in, and I've seen in the past former Blues, Al McInnes, who I respect a ton. Obviously, is one of the best defensemen ever to play. Is in Chris Pronger, the same with him. So if it happens, great. But I'm just going about my life and enjoying it right now.
Well, I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen, in my humble opinion. So let's go back to the beginning a little bit, if you don't mind. This podcast is all about telling the stories that people might not have heard before. Tell us about your earliest recognition or earliest remembrances, I guess, of hockey, all the way back to the early days of your life. When did you first become aware of the game of hockey, and how did you fall in love with it?
Well, I grew up in Boston, where the Boston Bruins were obviously huge. The way they played, the way their style was, I liked it a lot. And I grew up in a family where sports, were encouraged, and just got going, fell in love with the sport, and then it just kind of took off from there. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, but I really enjoyed it. I loved the old time Boston Bruin hockey. Just with the Terry O'Reillys, Rick Middleton's, and then on to guys like Ray Bork and obviously Bobby Orr was a little bit before me. And Cam Neely guys, the guys I grew up watching and idolized, and then to get that opportunity to actually, play against, Cam and Ray was a huge thrill for me. But that's where it all started. But like young kids back in those days, you played all sorts of sports. You weren't really specified in one sport. So I enjoyed it, and it just kept on getting better and better. And, it was a long journey. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it and, took off from there. And it was a lot of fun.
So Malden Catholic High School, was that a hockey
Yeah.
school?
Yeah, it was. I mean, high school hockey back in Massachusetts was huge. And that's what you wanted to go. It wasn't like you went to juniors, back in the day. So
Hmm.
that's where it was. You played 4 years. You played winter. You played a fall sport, a winter sport, and a spring sport. Um, so I think I lost you there. But no, that's where it started. Played 4 years there. Then had the opportunity to go to Boston University and get to play with some great players under a great program in Jack Parker, and played one year there. But previously, after my high school, I got drafted into the NHL, and played 1 year at BU, and really took a step forward that year, and then was lucky enough to play in the try out for the 91, 92, or the 92 Olympics for USA, and I kept on. That's when you made the first cut in the summer. You kind of kept on staying with the team, and fortunately, I made it all the way through the last cut. And I figured once you play in the Olympics, you just sign a pro contract, and went on to Winnipeg from there.
Yeah, the Jets drafted you, and obviously you took off well in Winnipeg, and then the team moved to Phoenix. And so as a pro with Winnipeg, you had good numbers right off the bat. Was being a pro kind of an easy thing for you, or did you have to struggle a little bit?
Well, what? I thought the harder step was for me from going to high school to college than it was from college to the NHL.
Huh?
Um, you know, you played, there's a big gap in age difference, at both levels, high school to college and college to the NHL. But I think that 1 year of college, that training, and then, playing a college schedule where you weren't playing every day, you played on weekends and in the odd time in Boston because you're close to BU and Northeastern and BC are all close, and Harvard. You had a couple games during the week, but it was mostly weekend games. So you had that opportunity to train and practice with your group and really, learn the game and work on some of the things you need to work on. But that 1 year really helped me out. We made it all the way to the finals. And then moving forward, playing that 1 year on that Olympic tour where you played, that was the year you played all the NHL teams in the US. And then we played a bunch of games from Canada. So it kind of got you up to speed. So it was an easier transition going from the Olympics right to the NHL. And yeah, there's some ups and downs, and you're the young guy of the group, and it's a different game. It's a faster game. It's a quicker thinking game. But things got better. I felt my skating got better, and just everything kind of rolled into it. And it was, it just kind of took off from there. Play with some great players in Winnipeg, and every level you kind of you got to put the work in to get better. And fortunately, I did, and it was a fun time up in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and then the move to Phoenix, was that something that you enjoyed the move, or was that kind of a tough transition?
Well, it was tough. You liked it up in Winnipeg, but an opportunity to go on in Phoenix, a different environment. They couldn't sustain paying the salaries at that time up in Winnipeg. We knew it, and it happened really quick. I mean, not as quick as that move from Arizona to Utah this year, but
Yeah.
it happened quickly, and we kind of got thrown into the fire quickly. Not just on the ice, but selling the game off the ice. But it was a good transition. We had some good teams, played with some great players there, and Ronick and Craig Janney, Teppo Newman, and guys like that. It was a lot of fun, and it was a different environment. But there was a lot of transplants from the Michigan area, the Minnesota area, who still loved hockey that were living in Arizona. But it was a great transition. We had some solid teams, made the playoffs every year. In fact, 1 year we made the playoffs. We lost to, the old St. Louis Blues in 7 games
I
after
wasn't going to
three
bring
games.
that
So
up.
I can bring it up now that I'm a St. Louis Blue guy. That was tough, but Dallas Drake was another great teammate I had in Winnipeg, Arizona, and then St. Louis. We kind of
Sure.
followed each other, but it was different, of course. A lot of travel when you play out west, and that's the one thing, especially out in that area. You're doing a lot of traveling, but it's a little different from the East Coast, where those guys are in their beds a lot long, a lot more than we are out in the West. But it was a great transition. Things didn't work out, and then you know, who knew that I was going to live in St. Louis after that trade for the rest of my life, and that's where my kids grew up.
Yeah. So, eventually you became a leader on the team, a captain there in Phoenix. And I've heard a lot of people say, Keith Tkachuk was the best captain you could imagine. He was the best guy, always sticking up for his teammates and so forth. You really took that seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that on the ice; it's off the ice. Taking care of making sure the locker room's on the same page and treating people, not just the players but the staff. You know, the staff should be treated just like players. They put a lot of work in, but if that's the way you grew up, but it dates me back to the Boston Bruins days. They were a tough team. They stuck up for each other, and I know my teammates would have my back, and I had their back. When you're playing with great players, you don't want to see guys take liberties on Pavel Dimitra or Dougie Wade or anybody, Al McInnes. You want to stick up for them, and I try to do that as much as possible because I know they'd have my back.
Yeah. I tasted a little bit of that when the team allowed me to fly with the team and my wife and I to Toronto back in '07 for my 20th anniversary with the team. And you made me feel welcome on the plane. And I always appreciated that.
Yeah, how many years is it for you now?
Well, we're at 37. I just turned 1,700 games the other night, and they did a little
Wow,
thing on the video board.
congratulations. That's great. That's
Appreciate it.
good for you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Congratulations.
Well, I'm a lucky guy that way. I've been healthy enough to do that. Well, let's talk about your family background a little bit. Being a captain takes some kind of a personality that appreciates other people. Go back to the beginnings of your life a little bit. Talk about your family and where your values came from.
Well, you grew up, we weren't, my parents did everything they could for me. I mean, it was, my dad worked two jobs. My mom was a housewife and she had to take care of four kids. And when you're living in a small place and, I'm grateful that they put every single dime they had into, paying for a lot of hockey. And in Massachusetts, fortunately, you don't have to leave the state very often. There's so many kids playing hockey. So I was very fortunate with that. But, it's blue collar people and it reminds me of St. Louis too, as well. And obviously, things never change for me. I'm very fortunate, over my career that, the game of hockey has been huge for me. And that hasn't changed me one bit. I love still doing what I do and haven't forgotten all that stuff that how you grew up. And I think that's what we did for our kids nowadays.
Sure. Yeah, and let's talk about your current family. Chantal, you always give a lot of credit to her for the way Matthew and Brady and Taryn have turned out and their lives. You're away a lot, and she she
Yeah,
she gets a lot of credit.
absolutely. She should. She's amazing. When you're when you're traveling as much as we do, it's not just the away games, you're gone. It's even when you're home, you have a schedule. I mean, you're gone. You try to drop the kids off at school, but you're gone. And then you got pregame naps and you're leaving to the games early. So, and then when your kids start getting busy, which I think, we're a very busy family back then. We're going to hockey rinks, soccer fields, baseball fields, flag
Yeah,
football, my daughter field hockey, soccer. It was one thing after the other. So it's a lot of work. And, that shouldn't go unforgotten. And, I have to worry about both, but, I can get away for a couple of days on a road trip and get some rest. But no, you have to have a good family to make sure everything runs smooth. And we're very fortunate. I mean,
yeah, and her brother
my wife,
Craig is a player agent too. So
yeah,
there's a lot of hockey going on in that family.
Yeah, he's the boys' agent, and he's a great guy, great sounding board to talk to for advice, and he's done a good job for my kids. So I'm kind of out of the loop with that. Let him take over the business part, but it's been great. We're very lucky. It's been awesome, 30 plus years or whatever it is. So as long as I don't care what my kids were going to be, as long as they're good kids, and I think they treat everybody with respect. But going back to when they went to school and at Chaminade and Oak Hill Villa before that when my daughter graduated from Villa. So we're very happy now. She's at Virginia, which is crazy that she just finished her last year of her career being a senior. I don't know how fast that
Wow.
went by, but
Yeah.
I remember when the boys and Taryn run the ice with me as my last game. Now looking back, time flies by and it's crazy seeing them all grow up. We're getting old.
Yeah. Yeah. I know how that feels. Does she have an opportunity to still be an athlete after college in some way?
No, this is it for her. She loved it. It's been 4 years. It's time to move on, and she had a great time. Always competitive with their teams. They just got knocked out about 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago in the quarterfinals to Northwestern, who went in overtime, in fact, and they ended up Northwestern ended up winning the whole thing. So she had made the NCAA tournament all 4 years. Had a great career, and now she's going to get into the real world now, getting a job after she graduates, and we'll see where it takes her.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Big Walt again. Where'd that nickname come from? Do you know that story?
I think Eddie O called me that when I first went to Winnipeg.
And you were
Because
just Walt at the
Walt,
beginning,
yeah.
right?
Then I kind of, a couple of boys, we made it, including myself, said Big Walt, and
Yeah,
but Eddie Olchuk gave that to me based on the former New York Ranger Walt Tkachuk, who is no
right.
relation whatsoever. So
Not even spelled the same, right?
no, it's not even spelled the
Yeah.
same, but it's one of those names that you don't hear every day. So he gave it to me, and I was a young kid. I had no choice. And I said, okay, sounds good to me.
Well, it's stuck, and big the big part is key there, I think. You were a bigger player. Everybody talked about your tree trunk legs and all that kind of thing, the whole career you had, and you made a living there in front of the goal so many times. And right towards the end of your career, you were in front of the net and somebody shoots the puck and you take one to the chops, right?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Like you go your whole career, you really never have any significant injuries to your face. And yeah, I've been cut here and there with punches or sticks or pucks, but never quite something like that. I mean, it was probably in January, I think. And, it's one of those things where I like to go to the net and I knew what my job was. And, unfortunately, it was one of those things where the defenseman was in front of me, so I couldn't see. And I peeked my head out, and boom! I felt like I got hit
Damn.
with a sledgehammer. And that was probably a 2 year process after that to get everything completed, whether it was surgery, taking bone out of my hip to place it all up in my upper lip because I shattered the upper lip right off. I had a
Mm,
mouth guard in,
yeah.
and they actually put a hole through my mouth guard. And
Oh,
I've never had that feeling before. And it was one of the worst experiences ever. But with Ray Borelli and the contacts we have in St. Louis, our team dentist and all the people, root canals and surgeries, it finally got fixed. And after 2 years, and it was weird, going around with, all my I had four teeth missing up top, so it wasn't the most lookable thing, kind of. It was kind of weird going to kids' school events and you have no teeth and all that
you're a
stuff. But
hockey player. People give you a little
yeah, not everybody
pardon
knows
for that.
hockey. No, not everybody knows hockey. So it was kind of weird. You go play golf and you're like, oh boy. So especially at Old Warson, I didn't have a good look there for when I first joined.
You know who shot the puck?
TJ Oshie, he feels
TJ
bad
Oshie.
about it, but it was an accident. It got deflected, and like I said, the last second I gave the old peek, and boom, and I can't believe it actually went in the net, but it wasn't worth it. I would give back 50 goals to get
Yeah, yeah, I
all my
bet you
teeth back.
would. Yeah, yeah, I heard that like the bone right under your nose was all shattered in there.
Yeah, yeah, I had kind of a oral surgery that night, and then I had to get in once I got all a little bit better than they went in after I season was over and had surgery and take bone out of your hip. It's not the most comfortable thing either.
Oh
And
gosh,
but it's
it's
just it's
not.
it's unbelievable. Like the all the doctors were incredible. Plastic surgeon, everything. It was top notch, and we finally got it done. But went through hell to get it though.
Well, I'll bet. Facial pain and head pain is the worst kind anyway, and yeah,
Yeah,
it had to be awful.
could have been worse. Could have been my eye though, Tom. Too. Then we're talking something completely different because I didn't wear a shield
Right.
like most players do nowadays. So
Hmm.
yeah, I look back and it's a blessing I didn't lose my eye.
Yeah. We're talking, of course, with the great Keith Tkachuk. We've got a question from one of our podcast listeners, if you don't mind, Walt. Jason Fink, a Blues fan for 27 years, sent in a question. He wants your favorite remembrance of your old buddy Pavel Dimitra. Tell us a Pav story.
You know what? When I first got traded, it was weird because I didn't know a lot about Pav, but I knew he was a pretty solid player. And I didn't realize till when I got traded to start playing with him, I didn't realize how skilled he was. But I ended up getting traded to St. Louis for I think two or three of his buddies, his
Mhm.
Slovakia Hanzus and Nagy. And they were really close. And at first, we were very quiet. I think he was a little upset about the trade, but once we got to know each other, he was a quiet guy, pal. He didn't say a whole lot, but he had a good presence about him, and he was a quiet guy, And once we got to know each other, felt comfortable with each other, and we had a blast together. And I liked it actually better when he was quiet because I think I created a monster, as Dallas Drake said. He and Al said, he was so quiet till he met me, and then broke him out of his shell, and because he was too important of a player for us not to be heard in the locker room, and he was a hell of a player. I mean,
Oh, he was.
he was unselfish too, and he would always look for me. We read off each other really well. We enjoyed playing with each other, and I wish it was a lot longer, but I definitely miss that guy.
What an awful tragedy with him going down with that plane over in Russia.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on and off the ice together, dinners on the road, and he was an incredible person. He'll be missed, but he's a great St. Louis Blues. I'll tell you right now.
Yep, and he's in the hockey or the Blues Hockey Hall of Fame as well, right along with you. And that had to be a important thing for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it made it more special that, honestly, I mean, we all know Mike Caruso. He's the brains behind a lot of things that happen. He's been around for a long time, and how
Longer
he
than me,
set.
actually.
Yeah, I think he might be the longest there in
I
St.
think
Louis
so.
Blues organization, and
Yeah.
he doesn't get enough credit for what he does. And I hope he goes in to the St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame too,
No, he should.
because
Should.
the way he did it with my kids and to tell me how I was getting inducted and who I was getting inducted with was incredible. And that's Mike. He always has a different vision than most people, and he cares about the Blues. And I'll be so great. I'm so grateful for everything he's done for me. But that was a special night with everybody, a lot of friends in St. Louis who came, a lot of my former teammates. Um, and had my family there and my buddies from Boston, and it was just a great event. It was funny. It was a heck of a thing they put on there. It was so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike's going to be on this podcast at some point, but he won't tell all the good stories because he keeps them to himself from those
Yeah, he knows
behind the
where the
scenes stuff.
yeah, he knows where all the bodies are buried. So
You bet. You know, I want to ask you something about you. You are the father of two NHL stars right now, and I keep hearing people say, the players today are different. They're a little more pampered than they used to be. What do you think about that statement?
well, I think it's a different era. Of course, it is. It's just the way every all kids are growing up nowadays. There's not a lot of accountability, but it was different in our house. I treat them no different just because they're playing the NHL. I think they've growing up there, being at the rink all the time, really helped them understand what it's like to be in the locker room and how they should carry themselves and show respect to the older guys. But bring that energy in the locker room that you need, and the way they treat people, not just in the locker room, but around the building. I think that goes a long way, and I think it's important. And I'm proud of the way they handle themselves. They might do stuff on the ice that people don't like, but that's part of the game, and I love that. I think it's great that they're engaged and they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. And we saw that with Matthew last year, winning the Stanley Cup. But it's the way they handle things, and I'm proud of that. And I think it's a lot from coming to the rink. I mean, you talk to Ray Borelli back in the day; those kids would hit all the good stuff in the locker room with the gumballs and the candy and stuff, and playing shitty hockey in the locker room, making a mess. But they learned a lot of good things being in the locker room. They learned some bad things, too. But
Can't help that.
yeah, that happens when you're in a locker room full of men and talking and stuff and hearing things. But overall, it was. And I played for some guy, and I got another guy that I have a ton of respect for, is Larry Plow. He encouraged family, and he was a great general manager. He's the one who brought me to St. Louis, and what he allowed Chantel and my kids from day one to make us feel like we played there for 10 years. And it was, I know Larry, we have Boston ties, but I didn't really know him, personally. But what he did bringing me in, and how he treated me, and how he treated my family, I'll never forget.
This question usually picks off my guest, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You got a story that you love to tell about somebody that you played with that maybe hasn't been told before? You got one in the back of your head somewhere?
The guys got a kick out of when I this is when obviously we had Paul Correa. Paul was just a talent like you wouldn't believe. I mean, you've seen him. He had some great years in Anaheim and Nashville, and then he came to us, and I helped recruit him because we're at that stage where we needed some players. We were going through some tough years, but Paul's such a focused guy, and it's hard to get him off his game before a game. But like, I think Paul came out, and it was a little bit slow out of the gate. And I said, and all the guys loved it, Andy McDonald and all the guys, Dally, and I was like, Paul, what, honestly, I love having you here. This has been so awesome. But as a season ticket holder, which I was, frankly, I'm a little disappointed in your start. And all the guys lost it because nobody talks to PK like that. So all the guys got a kick out of that because I was a season ticket. Not only did I get 2 tickets a game, but we bought a few season tickets just because we have a lot of 3 kids and they have friends, and we wanted to make
Sure.
sure whenever they got down there. So
Yeah,
the guys got a kick out of that, and Paul got a kick out of that.
I bet he did. And we've been without Bobby Player now for a couple of years, and I told a story when I talked to Chaser about how when we went on that trip to Toronto that I referenced earlier, we came back to the hotel after having dinner, and there's this big crowd in the hotel lobby, and I'm telling my wife, what the heck's going on there? We got back to the lobby, and there's Bobby surrounded by about 200 people, and he's telling jokes and stories. What's your favorite memory of Mr. Player?
Uh, you know what? Even back in the old what we call the Heel Center or the Scotch Trade at one point, and he would always be there. I mean, he was a St. Louis Blues from day one to him being around, and hearing story. And there's not a better storyteller than him. I mean, it's
He was dangerous.
incredible.
Yeah.
And he was a bit like he had that personality where he could just he knew how to talk. He knew how to he was just a funny guy. But I loved having him around, hearing the stories, and he had some amazing jokes. And he's just a funny guy. His energy, he was always positive, and this is a guy who played really hard,
Oh yeah.
and he was there from day one, and he's just an incredible person. It was just a tragedy what happened to him, and we miss him big time. But that number's up there. You always take a peek, and I'm glad he got to see the Blues win the Stanley Cup. That was that he's a big part of that, and he'll
And he got
always
his
be a big
parade.
part of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll always be a big part of that. But he was an incredible guy. He was a funny son of a bitch. He was he he didn't care. He would say anything. There was no filter on this guy either.
Yeah.
But he wore it. He's what the Blue Note's all about.
Yes, indeed. All right. As we kind of wind it up here with Keith Kachuk, I like to ask on this podcast, what is your idea of how you would like to be remembered as a player, as a person in general? What's Keith Kachuk's story?
Well, you know what? I think I learned a lot when I went to St. Louis. It's a place I'll always call home, and I'm proud of the fact that you know I was part of helping carry on the tradition that the guys in front of me started with youth hockey in St. Louis, and I'm proud of the fact that I coached a bunch of kids at different levels that have all stuck with me and kind of all I'm proud of the fact that they all got a chance to move on to keep playing. And we had a ton of guys. I'm not talking NHL. It's great that there are guys um, that made it to the NHL, but I'm grateful for the guys that, and girls that went on to play college, junior hockey, college hockey, playing in Europe. That's what I'm most proud of. And, guys before me, like Bruce and Al's another guy, Jeff Brown, coach for a long time. It's incredible. Rob Ramage, Basil McRae, and Blake Dunlop, and a ton of guys, Kelly Chase, and we kind of carried it on. And I hope the next generation does that too. But I'm proud of the fact that I was able to coach in youth hockey in St. Louis and help fulfill some kids' dreams of playing all the way through midget hockey to the next step, whether it's college hockey or junior hockey. And at the end of the day, we had a ton of kids drafted. And you look at around the St. Louis isn't a big place, but I think guys in front of me put St. Louis on the map, and the players, I'm proud of them that they're still playing. That's what I'm most proud of. But I like to help people, and I played for some great players and met some great teammates and met, some of the trainers are still some of my best friends and people, staff that I work with. I love coming down to the rink and seeing everybody. And, it brings back great memories. I mean, time flies, it goes by fast, but I'm very proud of it and proud to be a Blue.
One other little thing occurred to me. We have guy who wore the blue note back in the 90s, now coaching the team. Your thoughts about Jim Montgomery coming back as head coach?
You know what? You hate to see people get fired, but it's and lose their jobs. But Jim Montgomery is one of the best coaches around, a great hockey mind. I know Jim personally, and you know, um, I'm glad he got that taste with us before he took the Boston job. I think it's an incredible pickup. You can't pass on guys like that, and I think he knows how to relate to all players, not just top players, but middle of the road players and your energy guys. And I think he'll bring that excitement, that personality that we need to get to the next level. And I'm ecstatic to see him. I can't wait to go back to St. Louis and actually run into him at the rink.
Yeah. And your director of recruitment, I think, is the title. Tell
Yeah.
us a bit about what that entails.
Well, I'm work with the amateur department now, and so I'm traveling all over the place right now. I was doing college, but I'm back on the draft, and that experience and helping us, get the right players in here in our organization and the mix. That's what I love to do, and so I'm traveling from far out west and to Calgary or Seattle to out east to Sherbrooke or to the college games. And
Racking up
so I'm
those
trying.
miles.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I love doing it. I love the challenge. I love the energy our guys, and we have a great staff, and we want to make sure and we're in good shape, with our future. And when Alex Steen finally takes over, he's got the right people, players that he can, do whatever he wants with. But I love our staff. I love working with them, and I didn't give enough credit to how hard the scouts work when I played. And but I see what guys do and how much time they put into going to places that you just never heard of before. But I love doing it. I want to continue to do it.
There you have it, folks. Our visit with the great Keith Kachuk. Thanks, Walt. I appreciate it.
Still the best voice in hockey right there, Tom.
Take care of yourself.
All right, you too.
Thanks for listening to St. Louis Blues Hockey Legends with Tom Calhoun. Many thanks to blues organist Jeremy Boyer for providing the organ music. Be sure to follow him on Instagram at Jabs Music. Logo design by Sean Donahue. Follow him on LinkedIn. Editing and voiceover from Hilton Productions. For more about Hilton Productions, visit them at hiltonproductions.com.